I was, I think 12 or 13 at the time. I think I was 12 when it started. At the time I didn't really understand what was going on. All I knew that I was very sick. I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it began with what the doctors thought at the time were here in Guam were mumps. Then the tumor started getting bigger, and I just remember having massive headaches, and I remember I just couldn't breathe. So I was medevaced to Honolulu, to the Kapilani Medical Center. I used to have all the emergency oxygen on the plane because I guess one of the tumors were collapsing my lung. So when the Make-A-Wish Foundation came and explained who they were, they definitely was an uplifting experience, not only for myself, but for my mom and dad as well. And I remember Miss Sylvia Cochran coming into the room, introducing herself, talking about the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I had no idea what that was. And I think I was going through chemo at the time. So, like I said, I didn't understand what any of that was, and she mentioned, you know, what the Make-A-Wish Foundation was, and she said that she'd be able to grant a wish and to think about what I wanted. And it just so happened I had somebody had lent me an Apple computer in the room, and I remember looking at it, and I said, but she said she'll return, and she'll return with someone else, and she didn't. I don't remember her mentioning to me who she can return with. I think it was a couple of days later, she came in to the room again. This time it was with Mr. Frank Bloss, to our great surprise, and I think he might have been the lieutenant governor at the time. And so very nice man, very gracious man. So he talked to us about the Make-A-Wish Foundation again, and he mentioned how they're trying to start a chapter in Guam. And then he asked me, he says, "Mike, what is it you want to wish for?" And I remember looking at that computer in the room. It was an Apple computer. I've always wanted one, and I said, well, Mr. Bloss, I'd like to wish for an Apple computer. And he says, "Mike, then your wish is granted." It was definitely a profound effect on myself, and definitely my mom and dad, because you know, we were surrounded by all this medical things that were happening, and the bad news of this cancer, and it was a lot of darkness. And I would refer to as the Make-A-Wish as, you know, there's this light there that was able to bring up certainly my spirit and distract me from the everyday process of going through chemo and spinal taps and mini operations. I used that experience and that positive attitude to help me get through the rest of my chemo, and to ultimately go into remission. And then the rest of my life continued to happen, and here I am.